Is it a one-man show, the fight against corruption? If they can hear us in Abuja. Professor Dekule, go ahead and respond to, you wanted to respond about whether or not it's a one-man show or has it been institutionalized?
Oh, okay. I just want to say, for clarification, I never believe in a one-man show fight. In fact, all I just said was leadership is very important. Because in a system, like most developing countries, the head works the tail. If you look at the history of Nigeria from Gawanti today, you know that Nigerians have followed the direction of the head of state. That's the point I was making. I'm not saying. And in fact, remember, I was critical, saying that Buhari is like an oasis of integrity in a cesspool of corruption. And therefore, this thing needs to be institutionalized. And that's why I argue that there is need to be a consensus of leadership of the various arms of government and the fourth estate of the realm, the press, about this value system and how to enforce it by persuasion and by corruption. And secondly, I need to correct, I'm never against the legal profession. If anything, I believe the legal profession should be the soul of the anti-corruption fight, instead of me a collaborator like some other professions like quantity surveyor, engineering, architecture, and the like. They are collaborators of corruption because they connive before, after, or during for the perpetration of corruption. So I'm not against the legal profession. I'm saying they should put Nigeria, our interests, before their profession. A good example of this is that the legal profession was responsible for the acquittal of Ibori. The same, more or less the same facts were taken to England. And the legal profession, their bar and bench, convicted him. I'm saying our legal profession, bar and bench, should be like that. That's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not against the legal profession. We need them, but they must deal with their role, believe in their role, particularly in this matter of fighting corruption. As far as 1978, at the Law Reform Commission, had argued that the procedure for dealing with corruption should be varied to be inquisitorial rather than adversarial. In other words, you must be considered guilty to prove innocent when it comes to cases of corruption. Without that, will be, and that's why I'm arguing that there should be a task force now, outside of this technical ICPC, EFC system, a task force, at least for a year or so, to pursue these corruption matters and bring them up. And that these people should engage what I call anti-corruption vigilantism in a way that it will go to the grassroots everywhere, ministries and the like. Because as of now, we are just touching the tip of the iceberg in the government, in the ministry. Whoever, I told you, who has ever touched the private sector? All these banks that are making humongous profits year in, year out, and yet they cannot make the money without government. I mean, there's no corruption in the profits in the private sector, I mean the public sector, without the collusion or cooperation of the
Professor Dekule, I need to bring it back to Lagos. Well, Chief Akingba, well, quite a number of issues that he's raised there. But some of them, such as, well, we still don't have institutions. He suggests that there's that collaboration, even with professional groups and associations. Is that how it comes across to you?
It comes across to me as confusing causes and effects. The concept of institution that he mentions, that we should have, these are supplementary institutions to the number one institution, which is the Constitution. The Constitution is the overall ground norm that covers all other laws. All other laws emanate from the Constitution. But when the parent, the taproot, is rotten, as the current Nigerian Constitution is fundamentally rotten, is fraudulent, how do you expect better things to come out of it? It's not possible. So we are treating the effects without going to the fire that causes the smoke that is killing all of us. He himself, Odekunle, he says he's a member of the panel that advises the president. It's an institution. They put them there. But what is the effect? In fact, our current president, he was part with his deputy. when it was military. They were shooting people at the bar beach. The corruption about which they shot people are even more so now than before. Why don't we try to have a grand norm, a constitution, a structure that prevents you from following your evil instinct? Because we are born with good and bad. The structure will tell you, it's like on the road. There is one-way road that goes, you cannot drive against it without killing yourself and others. It's the structure. But when structures are not there to guide you, or the one that is there is in fact fraudulent, then you have all these things we are trying to talk about. They exist. These are realities, but they exist because we fail to recognize what has brought them about.
Let me just bring this in passing as well. I mean, since you're speaking about the military, the constitution, what we still have, the parade that we just saw concerning today, Inauguration Day, are those still, can they be regarded as vestiges of the military era, or is it that if we have a new constitution, we won't have military parade anymore?
If we have a new constitution of the people, by the people, and for the people, whether they will support this kind of charade you call parade, I don't know. But let the people have their own way, and let the government be the government of the people, the servant of the people, and not the other way around. We are serving the government. We have an inauguration that the president did not tell us what he wants to do in the next 4 years. A people's government cannot do that. That's all I'm saying.
So, Professor Ebode, you, of course, in your opening remarks, in your comments about the same parade, you made some references to the Swiss bagpipes and all of that. As opposed to those things that you saw at the parade, what would you have preferred to see?
Well, an inaugural ceremony like today should be a festival of democracy. The people have spoken, and then you want to celebrate their choice. But I think, like I said previously, the government is hampered by the fact that the victory is being questioned, even today, as we have the transition, the inauguration. So maybe that is the burden under which President Buhari is laboring, that it will be putative. It will almost be inchoate for him to celebrate his election, since the matter is before the election tribunal. But having said that, the Scottish bagpipes and the militarism that percolated the whole ceremony, I find it a little bit out of place. I have lived in countries where when you see a military parade, say in the old Soviet Union, the day of victory, I think it used to be June 6th or something like that, when you saw the Soviet military on parade, you'll be left in no doubt that the military are on parade. Even recently, you saw North Korea. When North Korea, the military are on parade, it's a different kettle of fish. But today, I'm seeing the inauguration of the presidency, and my friend calls it a charade. No, it wasn't a charade. The powers that be wanted to rub it in that they are celebrating their commander-in-chief.
That is charade.
And that is why they brought all the question of flag, the military command, orders, and what have you. It was not a political event. It was just an event celebrating militarism. Militarism and democracy, they are odd bedfellows. Okay? Nigeria should know, or Nigerians should know, that today is a day for the inauguration of a tenure, a new tenure of the president. That is the long and short of today's ceremony. The military, they defend the republic. That's their job. Okay? If we had another event that warranted full military parade, so be it. I'm not against the military. But I'm not oblivious of the fact that our president, today's president, has his roots in the military. So it was sort of reminding the rest of us that here is our man, and we have to celebrate him. That's the way it came across to me.
Let's hear from Professor Odekunle in Abuja. Would you make the same classifications as our guests in Lagos here on the parade earlier today?
I will align myself with the comments of Akinwumi that I would have preferred ordinary. I don't think it's a charade. I think it's a parade. It's a sort of being proud of our military honors. But I would have preferred that the president gives a speech, however brief, about what he has done, and more importantly, what he's going to do in the next 4 years. However briefly, even though the military parade will be part of it, but it's possible that he's saving the best of the pudding for a Democracy Day, which is June 12th. That is a possibility. But generally, I align myself with what Akin has said, that there's nothing wrong in what has been done, even though one would have preferred that he gives a speech in addition to the military. And by the way, talking about that, I still believe, like in regardless of what Alfred said, like in Singapore and South Korea, and Malaysia, that we should have moderated democracy, moderated rule of law in a way that our progress will not be stunted, will not be defeated by an emphasis on means rather than the objectives we are going to achieve. I just wanted to chip in that because of our brother there, who is really making issue of the Constitution, forgetting that the Constitution is made by the same leaders, and they will only make a Constitution in their interest. I mean, take your National Assembly. They have been, year in, year out, they have been passing laws against kidnapping, against murder, against armed robbery, saying that it should be death penalty. Considering the cost of corruption, which is very dangerous to our life, more than even all the armed robberies combined, they have never passed a law to say death penalty for corruption. The same people you are expecting that they will use the Constitution to better our lives, no. We are going to have other legitimate means, may not be legally, technically legal, but other legitimate means to achieve the survival and the flourishing of this country.
Well, we'll bring in you a little later, but let me get Mr. Osigwe's response. What would you rather have? Do you think that's a charade, a parade, or, yeah, we should just go with what we have?
Well, I wouldn't describe it as a charade, but I would have expected to have a much more people-centered celebration. The president is assuming commencing a second term in office today, and which presupposes that is a celebration of the mandate given to him as declared by INEC. Now, the undue militarization of the same would appear to have robbed it of the main essence of a democratic rule, which it is meant to signify. And then also the absence of a speech also adds to this. And then if you are in Abuja today, a number of the roads were blocked, and a number of these roads were far removed from the Eagle Square where the celebration took place. And I may not know if there were any security reasons for doing that, but then again, even if there were no arrangements were made or announcements made to prepare people to divert to some other or to use some other roads. So I think we are duly militarizing our city, our way of life, and it robs it of the essence of democracy. It makes people to be under an apprehension, and it seems to be a militarist celebration more than a democratic celebration it ought to have been. So some of these take away the shine from it. And it's not a charade, but it could have been better handled to make it a people-driven thing, to allow much more people to participate and be part of it, especially those who voted in the president to have shared in the joy of the commencement of a second term in office. And then the president ought to have also said some things, talked about the achievements and then the shortcomings of the last tenure, and also hold out promises of what the second term ought to be. We don't need to wait till June 12 for the president to do that. All these things ought to have been done today to set the tone for the second term in office. and maybe it may not be late in the day to do that, the president could still make a speech before the end of the day to set that tone, because everybody expected and looked forward to hearing the president's address upon taking his oath of office for second term in office.
So, Chief, in addition to your views, what would you want to see this government also tackle in the next 4 years?
Number one, let's do a constitutional change. Let's move away from unitarism to federalism. It is only federalism that can accommodate the different ethnic compositions of Nigeria. We are indigenous, 99% of us. And you cannot make me behave like somebody from another indigenous background, vice versa.
What kind of provisions do you want to see?
When the people are gathered together to write a constitution for their own mutual benefit, they will decide. I can't decide for them. But what we have is not the correct one. We know that.
Yeah, but you have an idea of what the correct one should look like?
The correct one should be the one that is arrived at by the people. The current constitution has been imposed since 1966. Subsequent imposition till today. Not even have they subjected the military imposed one to referendum for the people to decide. They're afraid that people will not accept it. It's not their document. Anything that flows from it is not the people's government. That's what it means.
Even though it's very similar to that of 1979.
Similarity is not the same.
And they said that's what the people wanted.
How can you tell me what the people want? You're asking me to decide for... Let the people decide. Let them... We have people. We have ethnic people that compose Nigeria. When they speak, that's what we should go by, is their government, not yours, not mine, but ours. Now, the Constitution is not ours, and it's producing for us daily miseries. People are dying. People are rendered homeless and taken to IDP camps. People are being kidnapped and raped and we say we have a government, both state, federal, and local, and they're not working. Because the people who are there, who the current constitution allows to be there, they are not serving the interests of their people. They're serving themselves.
Professor Ibade, do you think his solution will see the light of day? You've been a member of a committee to look at the constitution and prefer the way forward for the country.
Dr. Akingba was also a member of the Constitutional Conference, the conference, well. But I think he's making a valid point. The Patriots, with Mwabweze, the Black Table in Chief Williams' chambers, the Patriots came out with a definitive statement that this Constitution is a fraud. If you look at the preamble, where did we as Nigerians meet under God and decided to adopt this Constitution? It told a lie against itself. So it is not legitimate. I'm not saying it is not valid. It is valid, but it is illegitimate. That until and unless representatives of Nigeria adopt a constitution reflecting their interests, subjected to a referendum, which will give it legitimacy, what we have is a charade. It's not legitimate. It cannot cure the ills. What I'm saying is not new. Bolage, God bless him wherever he is.
Amen.
He said, all that we need is a confab where the Nigerians have to decide two questions. One, do we want to live together?
And how?
And secondly, how? Once we take those decisions, according to Bolage, then we will have cured ourselves of these problems of illegitimacy. And we had an example, although the confab was not elected. But I looked at the array of people at that confab. There has been no assembly like that I know of. When you look at from generals to professors to all sorts of people,
farmers market
for 3 months in Abuja. For me, it was a lifetime experience. I keep referring to what I experienced in Abuja. So I don't know why President Buhari decided that it was not worth his while to take a fresh look at the more than 600 recommendations.
Maybe yet.
Including a draft constitution, okay, which might have cured many of the ills. But the president decided it will consign it to limbo. And for me, except until and unless we take a fresh look at the modalities of cohabiting. We have 460 ethnic groups in this country, 460. And the ethnic groups, there are different populations, different scope, different areas, but once they agree, they hammer out a consensus that this is how they want to live, then we will have cured the big problem facing us of legitimacy.
I have this question, and that is on the referendum.
We need to do what you spoke about, which is go to the states. So you promised the people, and we have to bring people. Well, there's one, our correspondent Idris Jibrin is in Kano, so here is what he sent in. Idris.
This is the moment the people of Kano State have been expecting. 29th May 2019. The official swearing-in ceremony of Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje and his deputy Nasiru Yusuf Gawuna. Now, Sani Abacha Stadium is filling into capacity. I am being joined by the chairman, publicity committee of the swearing-in ceremony, Malam Muhammad Garba, who will be shedding more light to us on what we will be expecting on this very important day in the history of Nigerian democracy. Kano in particular. Honorable, thank you very much for joining us.
In the speech of His Excellency the Governor, there are a lot of expectation. The people of Kano expect that there will be quite a number of new policies and new innovations that will further add value to the lives of the people of Kano State.
Thank you very much. From Sani Abacha Stadium in Kano, Idris Jibrin reporting for Channels Television News.
Well, so that was the report from Kano. Well, different states, including Imo. Well, they also had that day today. So our correspondent Tope Kute also was there, and he also did send in what transpired, what's still to expect today.
Of Office of Governor of Imo State. I, Chukwuemeka Nkemakolam Ihedioha, Commander Order of the Niger of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that as the governor of Imo State, I will discharge my duties to the best of my ability, faithfully and in accordance with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the law, and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being, and prosperity of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That I will strive to preserve the fundamental objectives and directive principles of the state policy contained in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That I will not allow my personal interests to influence my official conduct or my official decisions. That I will do the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That I will abide by the Code of Conduct contained in the 5th Schedule to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That in all circumstances, I will do right to all manner of people according to law, without fear or favor, affection or ill will. And I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal to any person any matter which shall be brought under my consideration or shall become known to me as a governor of Imo State, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as a governor of Imo.
There you go. Now, Governor of Imo State, Emeka Ihedioha. Well, let's get to Abuja. Gentlemen, let's get to your concluding thoughts. Mr. Sigwe, let me start with you. Before the speech comes from the president, what would you like to see the government focus on or prioritize in the next 4 years? Mr. Sugwe, what would you like to see this government prioritize in the next 4 years?
Well, I would like the government to focus on the economy, security. Hello?
Go ahead.
To focus on security, the economy, and also in education. And then, above all, in taking the street children off the streets and ensuring that there is education, basic education is made mandatory for these children, because we need to prepare for the future. And then also, the government should also invest in research and development. And Nigeria should look towards alternatives to oil, because the dependence on oil will not augur well for us in the coming years, especially as many countries are phasing out electric cars, fossil fuel cars, and focusing on electric cars. And then, of course, power generation. And I'm sure the government's manifesto for the election should already contain programs for achieving this. But I think the government should do well to make these areas priority, so that we have a population that is self-reliant and then is focused on the future. And then, of course, there will be security of lives and property for the people.
Definitely, I think your question would be, what will the government or what will the direction be, maybe particularly for PACAC, in the next 4 years?
Okay, thank you for that question. As I've always maintained, I believe that fighting corruption is central to success in the economy, to success in tackling security, particularly in the long run. To that extent, I expect government to seriously focus on its anti-corruption fight, and PACAC, of course, will continue to give its advice to the government and its operators. But importantly, government must not only go down to the state and local government level, but it has to engage supplementary mechanisms. Like I've been talking about, there's a need for a task force, because that problem is so serious that it cannot be left to the routine functionaries of government. And I've also said in the course of this discussion that there's a need, as part of the task force, some kind of anti-corruption vigilantism composed of government organized, hungry, angry graduates of criminology, of law, of economics, of business administration, of accounting, to sort of sweep into the government and public agencies. Now, once we have done that, other things will follow. For example, I would like a government that says, we want to be technological. Therefore, I will pay more those who have polytechnic HND degrees in technology than somebody who graduated in Yoruba also or history. You want to develop rural areas. I would like a situation whereby doctors, teachers are paid higher when they go to rural areas than those who stay in urban areas. I would like a situation whereby the reward system is readjusted to the extent that nobody, whether PAMSEC or whoever, will not earn more than 10 times the lowest paid. That in any organization, the lowest paid, the salary should not, the income should not be less than 10% of the highest paid. This wide gap that one of your guests this morning had talked about, is part of the problem. That somebody cannot buy Panadol, yet the average rich person can go to England for malaria. Somebody has a mansion of 1,000 rooms, and there are millions of Nigerians who cannot have a 6x6 feet place to sleep. There are those who can hardly afford any single meal, and there are those who eat and eat and eat and vomit on the rest of us. You see, this is responsible for the situation of the economy, but it's more responsible for the situation of our insecurity. There's a dynamic relationship between the economy and the fortunes of the country relative to its security or insecurity. So that is why I say the role of corruption in all this, if it could be tackled, half of our problems of security of economy will be solved. So I think the priority of government should be fight the corruption, also certain fundamentals that create this wide gap between the rich and the poor. To me, that's the foundation I think Buhari should lay for his legacy.
All right, so we expect that PACAC will then advise the president as much. But we have to thank you for coming on, Professor Femi Odekunle, member, Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption. We also thank Mr. Afam Osigwe, who is the former NBA Secretary General. And then in Lagos here, we also have to thank Chief Amos Akingba, an elder statesman, and Nadeko Chieftain. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on.